Welcome back to Tipping Point. I'm your host, Kara McKinney. The Founding Fathers went to war over less than this. A nonprofit called the Firearms Policy Coalition used its First Amendment right to tell the governor of Maine to essentially F off. The crassness of the message was well-deserved as it came in response to the Democrat governor wanting to ban a popular type of semi-automatic rifle. Apparently, she's fine with Chinese transnational drug empire sickening her state and then sending the billions in revenue back to a hostile CCP regime in Beijing. But Mainers wanting to defend their God-given constitutional rights is where she draws the line. Enough is enough. New documents obtained through a FOIA request by the Maine Wire show that the governor was so upset by the remarks online from the Firearms Policy Coalition that her office flagged the posts and then referred them to the state police. It reminds me of what New York got in trouble for doing, which was to illegally threaten and leverage baseless investigations into any organization or company affiliated with the NRA, and to stop legally harassing them once they cut ties with the pro-Second Amendment Association. Joining us now to discuss all this and more is Steve Robinson, the editor-in-chief of the Maine Wire. Steve, thanks for being here tonight.
Thanks for having me on, Kara.
Great. So the Maine governor reported them to the cops. What did she expect would happen from that?
Well, it's unclear what exactly she expected to happen from this, but it's all part of a pattern that we've seen, not just at the federal level, where the government has been weaponized against conservatives, against Christians, but also here in the state of Maine. We've seen several cases where the state government, whether it's the health department, various professional licensure boards, or even the state police, have been weaponized against conservatives or against people who criticize the established powers. We saw during the COVID-19 government lockdowns, a business owner named Rick Savage went on another news program, criticized the governor, and it didn't take very long for them to take away his liquor license and force him to sell a business that was earning his family $4 million a year. He since moved out of the state. There was a doctor who was very popular who was prescribing ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and criticizing on the radio some of the Mills administration's COVID-19 policies. And the Bureau of Licensure and Medicine investigated her for spreading quote unquote misinformation. They later dropped that charge after they realized that it was heinous and unconstitutional. However, as a result of their investigation, they did uncover some other things that allowed them to strip her medical license away from her. She still doesn't have her medical license. So time and time again, we've seen the willingness of progressives who are in charge of all branches of government here in the state of Maine have been willing to use the power of the government to silence dissent, to punish people who disagree with them. And this is yet another case that touches on my news website, themainewire.com, because the Firearms Policy Coalition was tweeting out a video that we had posted where she was calling for an assault weapons ban. I don't know how familiar you are with the 2nd Congressional District of Maine in particular, a very rural district. It's safe to say there are probably more so-called assault weapons there than there are registered voters. It's a very popular firearm, and despite the ubiquity of guns in Maine, Maine remains one of the safest states in the union with a very low incidences of gun violence. In fact, some number of years ago, we legalized constitutional carry so that you no longer have to get a permit to carry a concealed weapon. And what we saw, according to the FBI crime statistics after that happened, was a decline in property crime and burglaries. Pretty much all crime declined after that point in time. So contrary to what the liberals were saying at the time, that Maine was going to become the wild, wild west and there would be guns going off and violence, that just didn't occur. So the push for an assault weapons ban, I think, was contrary to what the people of Maine want. And it was certainly contrary to what the Firearms Policy Coalition has advocated for, contrary to the Second Amendment. And it's really a sign of how thin-skinned the Mills administration is, that they would decide that they need to flag an insulting tweet to the Maine State Police. I can only hope that the Maine State Police just kind of snickered about the staffers in the Mills administration wetting their pants over a mean tweet.